welcome to Everyday Storytelling. How are you doing today? Today we are going to be changing it up because we are going to be doing the joke of the day first. Then we're going to be doing the Bible, then the synopsis, then Mara, which I remember.
Daughter of the Nile.
Yeah. Then I remembered.
Who's excited about this book? Is it
Who's on?
Kimmy says me.
Penny says she likes the book, but I can almost hear her. Is she downstairs?
No.
Okay.
So we are going to get to the joke of the day. Doctor, I'm suffering from deja vu.
Didn't I see you yesterday?
Okay. All right. Hi, Rebecca. Rebecca said hi, Jonathan.
Hi,
It's so good to see you today. I've got whoa, time out. Now I forgot to put the link on yesterday. This is the link for the Bible that we're going to be reading, but I'm not reading from and this is the reason why I forgot to send it yesterday, was because I'm not reading from the digital Bible Hub version, which is what I sent the link for, but I am reading from my written Bible, which is also the ESV, so it should have the same words as what the Bible Hub version gives. And Daniel, let's not be doing nefarious things behind my back. All right. So this is Galatians chapter 2 in the English Standard Version of the Bible. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move this a little bit closer to me because I got used to it being pretty close during the when we're reading the digital books. All right, if y'all are going to be distracting me, y'all can be in your beds. Just in case you're wondering, we're actually starting a little bit early now because we're going to try to start at 8 o'clock now that school is starting tomorrow. So I know JJ has a 7:30 first class where he has to be online at 7:30. So we're going to try that out tomorrow. Yay! So this is Galatians chapter 2. Are you going to stand behind me while I'm reading? Hold on, what? Oh, I've pulled this closer to me, and now you don't have to walk behind me. All right, this is Galatians chapter 2. Okay, JJ. Are you settled yet? All right. Then after 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas, taking Titus along with me. I went up because of a revelation and set before them, though privately before those who seemed influential, the gospel that I proclaim among the Gentiles, in order to make sure I was not running or had not run in vain. But even Titus, who was with me, was not forced to be circumcised, though he was a Greek. Yet because of false brothers secretly brought in, who slipped in to spy out our freedom that we have in Christ Jesus, so that they might bring us into slavery, to them we did not yield in submission even for a moment, so that the truth of the gospel might be preserved for you. And from those who seem to be influential, what they were makes no difference to me. God shows no partiality. Those, I say, who seemed influential added nothing to me. On the contrary, when they saw that I had been entrusted with the gospel to the uncircumcised, just as Peter had been entrusted with the gospel to the circumcised, for he who worked through Peter for his apostolic ministry to the circumcised worked also through me for mine to the Gentiles. And when James and Cephas and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that was given to me, they gave the right hand of fellowship to Barnabas and me, that we should go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcised. Only they asked us to remember the poor, the very thing I was eager to do. But when Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face, because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James, he was eating with the Gentiles. But when they came, he drew back and separated himself, fearing the circumcision party. And the rest of the Jews acted hypocritically along with him, so that even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. But when I saw that their conduct was not in step with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas before them all, if you, though a Jew, live like a Gentile and not like a Jew, how can you force the Gentiles to live like Jews? We ourselves are Jews by birth and not Gentile sinners, yet we know that a person is not justified by works of the law, but through faith in Jesus Christ. So that we also have believed in Christ Jesus in order to be justified by faith in Christ, and not by works of the law, because by works of the law no one will be justified. But if in our endeavor to be justified in Christ, we too were found to be sinners, is Christ then a servant of sin? Certainly not. For if I rebuild what I tore down, I prove myself to be a transgressor. For through the law I died to the law, so that I might live to God. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not nullify the grace of God, for if righteousness were through the law, then Christ died for no purpose. That's the end of Galatians chapter 2. Tomorrow we will read Galatians chapter 3. So, all right, and now it is time for the synopsis. Just a minute. Where did my mouse go? There it is. And okay.
So what happened in the last chapter was people, we got introduced to the characters. Mara, she is a slave girl who was not treated very well by her master, and she basically stole food so that she would have enough to eat. So this guy, he saw her. No, she's very strong-willed.
Barely speaks Egyptian, right?
No, she speaks Egyptian and Babylonian.
Oh.
And she's very strong-willed, and she catches the attention of this one guy who basically bought her in the name of the queen, and then is like, hey, I bought you so that you could be a spy. And he was like, so I'll give you a choice, either become a spy or I'll sell you to somebody else. So she became a spy to the, I forget who, but it's like royalty, the spy to the queen. Yeah, and she's spying on some royalty, basically. And that's about it.
Okay. So, I think what she missed was the Canaanite princess, Inanni. She is going to be her interpreter because she speaks Babylonian, and that's the language that the Canaanite princess speaks. All right. Chapter 3, the War Hawk. Sorry, just moving in a second. Okay, I have to wiggle the mouse every once in a while. I have to remember all this stuff that I didn't have to think about when I was, when we were doing the live stream with the digital copies, because I had to move the mouse every once in a while anyway, just to scroll, but now I don't. All right. JJ, can you hear me? Daniel, can you hear me? Kimmy, can you hear me? All right, are we ready? Becca, can you hear me? All right, I'll take that as a yes. All right. Chapter 3, the Warhawk. Anybody remember the first word? Kimmy's usually my first word champion, but the first word is win. All right. Okay, so there were two other characters that Kimberly didn't mention. Nakonk is the captain of the ship, the Silver Beetle that rides on the Nile, and Sheftu, I think that's his name, yeah, is the mysterious passenger that he transported up to Memphis from Thebes. And right now they're in Memphis. And Nakonk, I think, was waiting on Sheftu to get back. You're supposed to start settling down, right? Okay. Chapter 3, the Warhawk. When Sheftu had assured himself that the street was finally empty, he opened the door in the wall and quickly slipped through it. The Nubian was waiting for him. "This way, my lord," he murmured. "Well, Ebi, what think you? Is there good news for me?" Sheftu asked in a low voice, following the servant across the courtyard. "I cannot say, master. This guardian is green and pleasant. Kofra is an old man now. To be truthful, he is tired of both wars and pharaohs, having seen too much of both in his life. I think he will decide to stay here." Sheftu's heart sank, but he said only, "Perhaps he may yet be persuaded." Just read that. "The old are sometimes stubborn, master," said Ebi. Sheftu smiled grimly. "The young are sometimes even more so. He'll come to Thebes if I have to carry him there in chains." "I wish you good fortune then." Ebi stopped before a door. "He is here. Enter if you will." Drawing a long breath to calm his nerves, Sheftu opened the door and stepped into a quiet, sunny room. It was of familiar design, spacious, rectangular, windowless, but the two outside walls stopped some feet short of the ceiling, and through this open space, which was divided by graceful columns, light and air poured down into the room. In its center, in a chair beside a low table, sat the man Sheftu had come to see, Kofra, the warrior hero of all Egypt, veteran of countless foreign campaigns, leader of men, and for many years chief general of all the armies under the first Thutmose. Hatshepsut's father, Kofra, was now at 60, enjoying a peaceful old age. But he was far from feeble. His eyes still flashed dark fire under his white eyebrows, and the hand he stretched out to Sheftu was vigorous and firm. "Well, my boy, were you observed?" He laughed soundlessly at the expression on Sheftu's face and waved his visitor to a seat. "No, no, naturally not. You are discretion itself. As skilled in mummery as you are in guile, one would never recognize the gold-hung son of Lord Menkau in those simple rags. I must congratulate you. You look neither more nor less distinguished than every third man one meets in the street, and so are practically invisible." "That was my aim, honored one." Sheftu forced himself to sit down unhurriedly, place relaxed hands on the arms of his chair, and smile with a confidence he was far from feeling. "When you come to Thebes to offer your services to the queen as head of her armies, I promise none but you and Ebi and the king will ever have known of my connection with the affair." "When I come," said the old man dryly, "I did not know I had made the decision. A mere formality. Yesterday I spread the facts before you, revealed our plans, and begged your assistance, without which we must fail. Today I come to hear your answer." "And you have not the slightest doubt what that answer will be?" inquired Kofra, even more dryly. "Not the slightest," said Sheftu. For a moment their eyes met, the old man's ironic and little sad The old man's eyes, ironic and a little sad, Sheftu's dark and steady. Kofra gave a laugh that was half a sigh and moved restlessly on his cushioned chair. "Look at you, my boy," he said. "I was young once. I know what you are feeling. I, too, loved my Pharaoh. I rode my chariot against his enemies, and was fearless, and smote them down in great numbers, and brought their severed hands and ears to his tent, and was happy when he smiled. Together we subjugated the whole southern land of Nubia, and beyond the third cataract of the Nile. Together we rode northward against the Kephthus and the Canaanites, and gazed at last on the strange Euphrates, the river which flows the wrong way. Together we returned to the Black Land, with prisoners by the thousand with the Empire. But we were not together after that, not ever again, my friend. Pharaoh knew me not. Once the Empire was gained, he valued me not, loved me not, wanted me not. I was forgotten as though I had never been." The old general broke off, looking down at his hands. "Hout Mert, you're mistaken," protested Sheftu. "There is no name better remembered or more honored than yours in all the Black Land." "Honor I never cared for, nor fame nor riches, then or now. Beloved general, you call me." Khofra raised his head. "That was what I wanted, to be the Pharaoh's friend at home as well as on the battlefield. But Pharaohs do not love men, they use them. No, Lord Sheftu, I have seen enough of Pharaohs. Serve yours if you will. I will stay comfortably at home. And when young Thutmose tosses you aside like a worn sandal, come to me. Perhaps I can comfort you." There was a pause. Then Sheftu said gravely, "You do not understand, Haut Khofra." "Understand?" The old man frowned in surprise. "Certainly I understand. You wish me to come to Thebes as head of Hatshepsut's troops, especially the 2,000 of the bodyguard. You are sadly in need of training. Who are sadly in need of training. You wish me to train them, inspire them, discipline them to blind obedience to me personally, so that at my word of command they will rise against the queen herself. I understand all this perfectly. What you do not understand, my boy, is that I have finished with Pharaohs. But I do not ask it for Pharaoh. I ask it for Egypt." Khofra's fingers stopped drumming upon the table. "Egypt?" he echoed. "Aye, my general. Have you never known that it was Egypt you served?" Sheftu left his chair to stand over the old man. "That empire you conquered, was that Pharaoh's? No, Pharaoh is dead. It is Egypt's. But, by all the gods, how long can we keep it? With this pampered woman on the throne? All Syria is growing restive. The Kadesh, the Kephu, they have not felt the point of an Egyptian spear since their gray beards were young, and they need to be taught respect. You think Hatshepsut will do it? Pah! She cares for nothing except building more temples at whatever cost." Sheftu broke off, breathing hard. Khofra's still profile told him nothing, and he had a sudden, terrible vision of returning to Thutmose empty-handed. He leaned closer, gripping Khofra's chair. "But Egypt cares. Egypt groans under taxes, under the empire, while the empire slips away, bit by bit."
I'm sorry, Daniel, what are you doing to distract me while I'm reading?
Okay. Sorry about that. "But Egypt cares. Egypt groans under its taxes, while the empire slips away, bit by bit. With you in control of the army, Hatshepsut can be overthrown, and Thutmose, who is a man and a warrior, can set things to rights. Lost my place. Hi, think, Kofra. Pharaohs come and go. What matter if one used you and tossed you aside and loved you not? Egypt loved you, and she needs you worse than ever before. She is sick. Will you let her die? Still the old man sat motionless. Sheftu had done all he could, and he knew it. He straightened slowly in a silence only intensified by the humming of bees in the acacia blossoms outside and the shrill, far-off scream of an eagle. Kofra was looking at his hands, where they lay palm down on the polished table. They were powerful hands still, blunt-fingered and scarred and sinewy, and once they had gripped the mightiest sword in all Egypt. The general rose suddenly and walked to the open door, where he stood looking out at the sunny courtyard. You are a remarkable young man, Lord Sheftu, he murmured at last. Remarkable and wise, for you have shown me a thing I never knew. So, Egypt loved me? He paused, and for a moment longer remained motionless, leaning against the door frame. Then he turned back into the room. Egypt needs me? So be it, I will come. Blessed of Amun, breathed Sheftu. He crossed the room and bowed low. In Pharaoh's name, in Egypt's name, I thank you, Hotmert. I want no thanks. Up, my lord. It is I who thank you. You've cured an ache of 20 years standing, and at last made my life seem a reasonable thing. Reasonable? By all the gods, it's glorious. Now, more than ever, this news. Sheftu stopped, then suddenly laughed. This news will cheer my prince, so that he may even smile upon the Canaanite princes. Thutmose has sent for a Canaanite princess, exclaimed Kofra. Can you think so, my general? Nay, it is Hatshepsut who has sent for her. Thutmose wants no barbarian for a wife. He rages like the leopard of Upper Egypt at the very idea. It is just one more arrogant insult from that most arrogant of women, his sister. She holds him fast in a snare of politics and spies, and when he struggles, offers this princess and as one offers a toy to a fretful child. Aye, Kofra, she underestimates him. Kofra gave his soundless laugh. A pretty scene it will be, the arrival of this unfortunate Canaanite. When does she come? Soon. Her barge is at Abydos now. I may reach Thebes before her, unless my good river captain has set sail already, fearing me dead. I must take leave. Sheftu turned, placed his hand on his shoulder as he bowed once again. Live forever, hot Kofra, till we meet again in Thebes. 5 minutes later, he was hurrying through the side streets toward the wharf and the Silver Beetle. Thanks be to all the gods, his mission to Kofra had been successful. But there was one great obstacle in his path before it was finished. Word must be sent to the king as soon as possible. Since Sheftu's own carefully maintained position at court was that of a trusted favorite of the queen, it was unthinkable that he give Thutmose the message himself. And the old palace servant who used to act as a go-between had been murdered in his bed 2 weeks before. Sheftu's jaw set. It was dangerous business to have anything to do with the king, so dangerous that it was highly uncertain where he would find another trustworthy messenger who was daring enough to serve him well. Yet find one he must, and soon. He was still pondering the problem as he came out onto the wharves a few moments later, perceiving to his relief that the Silver Beetle was still waiting for him. It was the only southbound ship in the harbor. He would have been in a sorry plight had it sailed without him. A figure on its deck straightened suddenly and flung up an arm in greeting. Sheftu grinned as he waved back. Nikonk must have been having a bad time of the past hour. A bad time of it the past hour. Well, so had he. But now all was done, and they could be on their way. He moved swiftly toward the ship. At the other end of the wharf, the slave girl Mara was picking her way through a tangle of fishing nets and up-ended reed boats. She shaded her eyes to scan the line of vessels which bobbed along the quay, their masts swaying and weaving with the motion of the water. Far down toward the southern end of the wharf, she saw what she was looking for, a stout timbered Theban craft with an embroidered sail. For a moment she stood motionless, grinning triumphantly. Then she started to run. A few minutes later she was on the deck of the Silver Beetle, looking coolly into the face of the fierce-jawed riverman who was its captain. "Passage to Abydos?" he roared. "We're a cargo ship, mistress, high and mighty. We've hides and sheep's wool on board, so many there's scarce room enough for the oarsmen to dip their paddles. Think you we can set up some dainty pavilion in the middle of—" He stopped abruptly. From her outstretched fingers dangled a massive gold chain. The captain grunted. Hi, what a trinket that is, to be sure. Is it not too heavy for you, little one? Pray, let me bear the burden." He took the chain into his own square-fingered hand, flashed an appraising look into her face, then jerked his head toward a stack of hides at that end of the deck, farthest from the spot where Sheftu had climbed aboard 3 minutes before. "You can sleep there," he muttered. "We weigh anchor in 5 minutes." Part 2, The River. Chapter 4, Young Man with an Amulet. I'm sure we'll read 4. All right. Memphis's 3 great pyramids dwindled into sharp triangles of sun and shadow as the Silver Beetle left the harbor behind her. She pushed south against the current, her embroidered sail bellying in the north wind like a winged thing freed at last from ropes and trappings. Mara, curled upon her pile of hides near the stern of the ship, was luxuriating in a freedom far more glorious. To be rid of Zasha was bliss enough, but to be rid of all masters for a time, to walk where she would, say what she chose, above all to plunge straight into a new life full of exhilarating danger, blessed Osiris! Could it all be true? She felt in her sash for the little scarab, and its hard reality sent a tingling along her spine. It was true, right enough. Now what came next? Sail to Abydos. Find a man called Sanquin, give him the scarab, and leave the rest to him. Meanwhile, she had only to delight in the cool breeze on her face, the gentle leaping motion of the ship. 7 sparkling, lazy, soothing days of it. She snuggled deeper into the pile of skins and drifted blissfully to sleep. It was some time later that she opened her eyes to find a tall, young man staring down at her. At once she was wide awake. Who was this? She gathered her feet under her, every muscle tensed for a quick movement. For a moment they remained thus, gripped by mutual surprise. Sheftu was so amazed at seeing the same slave girl for the 4th time that day, and here on this ship of all unlikely places, that at first he could say nothing at all. Then he noticed her strong, deep breathing, her narrowed eyes, and her quivering readiness for flight, and realized that he had startled her badly. What a wild thing she was! Her whole attitude spoke more clearly than words of the life she must have led. "Do not fear me," he said gently. She did not relax. "I fear no one. Who are you? Why do you gape at me?" "I am a passenger on this boat, like yourself. My name is Sheftu. I was gaping at you because I am surprised to see you here." Why shouldn't I be here if I choose? Nay, wait a bit. I'm not questioning your rights, but it's very strange." He hesitated. It had suddenly occurred to him that her repeated appearances in this life that day might be something more than a coincidence. Had the Queen set spies upon him? His own attitude became guarded. But with him suspicion took the outward appearance of guileless charm. He flashed her his disarming smile and gestured smoothly. Please, it was very rude of me to gape. I crave pardon. Suppose we begin our acquaintance all over again. She would not have been human had she not reacted to that smile. If you like, she murmured. To herself, she thought, I must get over my slave's ways. I have every right to be on this ship, and I need fear no one on it. Sheftu sat down beside her and at once began to talk about a great stone image they were passing, telling the legends of the ancient king who had built it there on the shore. His manner was perfect. It contained just the mixture of friendliness and reserve best calculated to reassure her. Meanwhile, he was thinking fast, checking back on his movements of the day and examining the few facts he knew about her. He concluded finally that she could have no possible connection with the Queen's followers, and thus was not dangerous to him. But what was she doing here? The answer leapt suddenly to his relieved mind. She had fled from that man who had dragged her along the street. She was a runaway. He smiled now more engagingly than ever before, realizing that he had a powerful weapon to hold over her, if need be. He finished his story softly, and they say that the ba of the old king himself flutters about the statue at night in the form of a bat, looking at the face of the inscriptions, making sure his image and his name have not been forgotten in the land of Kempt. She shaded her eyes for a last glimpse of the great craggy granite face disappearing downriver. A strange tale that is, she said, and well told. I've never heard better, even from the old yarn spinners who sunned themselves in the temple courtyard. He sketched a little bow of acknowledgement. A little bow or a bow of acknowledgement. Perhaps I have followed the wrong trade, he remarked with a grin. And what is your trade? I am an apprentice to a scribe in Thebes, he lied glibly. One hoo-ah, a fine old man, but with a tendency to overeat, a tendency his appearances would gladly imitate, and had they the chance. She smiled. You scarce look underfed. Nor am I, but no credit to hoo-ah. This time she laughed outright. I see we have experience in common. Are you hungry now? Here. She reached into her sash and produced the last 2 honey cakes she had filched from the baker's boy earlier that day. She offered one to Sheftu, who took it with thanks, hiding his mirth. So, you are a scribe, she went on, biting into her own flaky morsel. I once knew a man who followed that trade. So, murmured Sheftu. Her quick retreat from the word master had not escaped him. He was in service of a district chief on the northern border of Egypt. There were many foreigners there. Foreigners flock to Egypt as birds to a marsh, observed Sheftu. That is how she learned Babylonian, he thought. She pointed suddenly. Look, there on the sandbank, he turned. The sandbar was nearly hidden by long brownish-green sinister forms. His flesh crawled a little in spite of himself. Crocodiles. They lay sluggish and motionless, all facing north, with their great pale mouths wide open to the prevailing wind. He thought of the crocodile-headed god Sebek, and felt for the amulet at his wrist. Then he turned back to the girl. That is why I have no fear of death, he remarked. The crocodiles? What have they to do with it? Everything. I was born on the 23rd day of the 3rd month of the season of growing. Swift comprehension crossed her face. Everyone knew that the fate of those born on that day was to be eaten by crocodiles. They both looked back at the sandbank, but it was she who shuddered. They will have me in the end, murmured Sheftu, but meanwhile I fear nothing else. He turned to her with a shrug. I shall cheat them as long as possible until I am an old man, see? He extended the wrist from which his amulet dangled. It was a twist of flax thread strung with 7 green glazed beads and knotted 7 times. One large flat bead of carnelian was inscribed on both sides. Her lips moved as she read the hieroglyphs. O thou who art in the water, behold, it is Osiris who is in the water, and the eye of Horus and the great scarab protect him. Get ye back, beasts of the water. Do not show your face, for Osiris is floating toward you. Beasts of the waters, your mouth is closed by Ra, your throat is closed by Sekhmet, your teeth are broken by Thoth, your eyes are blinded by the great magician. Those 4 gods protect Osiris and all those who are in the water. So she can read and perhaps write too, thought Sheftu, again surprised. You see, I am well protected, he said aloud. Perhaps. She raised her vivid eyes to his face. They were skeptical. You have no faith in magic? I have little faith in anything, she said carelessly, but I am glad I do not know how or when I am to die. What was the day of your birth? I know not, nor does anyone else. Perhaps I was not born at all, but I am a Keft maiden, as Zasha used to say. Zasha? She laughed. A man I knew once, a stupid fellow. He was convinced I had the evil eye. Hi, stupid he was indeed. How could evil come from anything so beautiful? Blue is the color of the sky, the lotus, the turquoise. These things are all good. She flushed a little. Evidently compliments were new in her experience. You are very trusting on short acquaintance, she said dryly. In your case, I have good reason, he assured her, smiling to cover any hidden meaning the remark might have. But you seem not to trust me. You've not even told me your name. My name is Mara. Mara, truth of Ra, you see? Who could distrust one with such a name? She laughed, tilting her head to squint up at Ra, the sun god, whose golden bark sailed far westward, now toward Libya and the land of darkness. Sheftu made use of the moment to study her profile intently. A gamin's face, he had thought, as he watched her in the marketplace. Yes, it was that. Her cheeks were sloping and shadowed, thin with years of hunger. Her chin was obstinate, and her mouth had a sardonic curve, as though it had learned well to lie. It was a skeptical face, a clever and unscrupulous one, but there was an elusive quality of wistfulness about it that fascinated Sheftu. He found himself wishing that this Mara, this waif, this runaway, did not have to pass so soon out of his life. Next instant he turned away from her impatiently, wondering if he had lost his mind. The life he had chosen as the king's henchman had no room in it for bright-eyed maidens, nor did the life he was born to, that of Lord Sheftu, son of the late wealthy noble Menkau, have any place in it for a common slave girl, save to iron his snow-white shanties. And despite the amulet on his wrist, he doubted whether either life would permit him to cheat for long the crocodiles who were his destiny. He walked these days with death at his elbow. Frowning, he studied once more the unsolved problem of finding a messenger to send to the king. It was a knotty one. Since the discovery and swift murder of the old palace servant he had used before, the queen's innumerable spies would be wary of everyone who came within hailing distance of Thutmose. No one would be above suspicion, except, he mused, someone from the outside, unknown to the king or the queen alike, and therefore apparently a partisan of neither. Wow, Kimberly, you pegged that really fast. He chewed his lip, playing with the notion. A foreigner? It was an unlikely idea, but he was desperate. What foreigner, then? He thought suddenly of the Canaanite princess. It was possible, but only just. He knew nothing of her, except that her welcome from Thutmose, who would never dream of marrying her, would be chilly indeed. Such a snub would hardly arouse in her undying loyalty toward the king. She might even turn vindictive and bring all his followers' careful plans tumbling down about their ears. No, thought Sheftu, not the Canaanite princess. Your thoughts are not pleasing to you, friend Sheftu? He turned quickly. Mara had been watching him, and he was certain at once that no slightest chance in his expression had escaped her. She was no fool of this girl. He smiled and began talking easily of the voyage, of where they would tie up for the night, of the wonders yet to be seen tomorrow. But at the back of his mind an idea was beginning to take form, an idea so startling that he did not even stop to examine it at present. Time enough for that when he was alone to think it out clearly, to test and try it, to make quite sure it was not mad. For 7 days, the silver beetles, sorry, just a second. For 7 days, the silver beetle beat her way southward, her sails fat with the breeze off the great green the Mediterranean. On either side of her gently dipping prow, the long land of Egypt slipped by like an unwinding scroll, revealing fields and marshes, mud-walled villages, fishermen straining at their nets. Often the high chanting of priests drifted out from shore as a procession filled into some painted temple. The water's soft hiss blended with the occasional scream of a kite far overhead. Green bee-eaters flashed over greener meadows, farmers worked beside the creaking water wheels, and little boys ran shouting along the banks, and always there was the sense of gliding motion, the song of wind in the rigging, the bright, clean air. Mara wished the voyage would never end. Each morning she woke fresh to the miracle of her freedom. Each night she lay in the moonlight, speculating about the new life awaiting her in Thebes. Between times there was food and plenty, good food, and long, lazy hours of companionship with the young man she knew only as Sheftu. They were much together, for there was small chance to avoid each other in the narrow confines of the ship, even had they wanted to. They strolled and scrubbed deck, watched the crew at work, or lounged side by side on the stacked hides, each busy with his own thoughts. What Sheftu's were, Mara would have given much to know. He tended to grow preoccupied, almost remote, now and then. She caught him studying her with an expression she could not understand at all, but he could sidestep her deftest question with an ease that exasperated as much as it amused her. Daniel, you need to settle. Really? Because you're not in your bed yet. She soon shrugged aside her curiosity. What did it matter? She liked his company. She loved to lean beside him at the gunwale, listening to his stories of the ancient ones while the sails slapped overhead and the sparkling water threw little gold reflections over his dark face. And when he chose to be alone, she could always amuse herself otherwise. It was interesting to wonder about the captain. For instance, Mara had known plenty of rivermen in her 17 years, but never one so nervous. When she and Sheftu were together, he was always somewhere in the background, standing about aimlessly or absorbed in unconvincing duties, which invariably happened to lead him within watching distance of his passengers. She wondered if he feared they planned to swim ashore with some of his precious cargo. It was curious. He seemed always to be seeking a chance to find Sheftu alone. Yet, each time such an opportunity arose, he shied off as if he could not make up his mind to seize it. One afternoon, to Mara's surprise, he sought her out privately. She was sitting alone and somewhat sulky in the shade cast by the cabin amidships. There remained only 2 days before they reached Abydos, yet Sheftu had elected to spend the morning in solitary preoccupation down by the stern sweeps. When Nakonk strolled toward her to inquire after her health, She answered him almost irritably. I'm well enough, I suppose, but somewhat of a temper. Where is that constant companion of yours? Asked. He's no company today. He broods, Captain. I wonder what about. Aye, so do I wonder, grunted Nikonk so vehemently that it surprised her. He hesitated, glancing at the crew members working here and there around them, then jerked his head toward the cabin. Suppose I try your skill at a game of draughts. I've a board and counters in there somewhere. As you like. Puzzled, Mara followed him into the cabin, which was dim and cool after the glare of the sun on deck. You're well acquainted with Sheftu, Captain. I thought he was a stranger to you, like myself. Aye, he is, said Nikonk hastily. Too hastily, she thought. Here, which will you have, girl, the red or the black? He set the game on the table. It was a narrow wooden box on graceful legs, checkered with carved squares on its upper surface, and with a drawer beneath it in which the dogs or counters were stored. Mara was busy arranging the red ones on her side of the board when the captain spoke again, his voice gruff. To tell the truth, it's you I wonder about, little one. I trust you know what you're doing, taking up with a chance acquaintance on a riverboat. He may be a rogue. Mara looked up in surprise. Rogues are nothing new in my life, Captain, but I see no reason to think Sheftu one. Don't you, by all the gods? Come, what do you know of him? Nothing, she admitted, save what he wants me to know. But then he knows nothing of me either. Aye, true enough, nor do I, for that matter. Perhaps it's he I should be warning. Irritably, Nikonk shoved a dog into the next square and sat back, scowling out into the sunshine. Now I've offended him, she thought in amusement, but great Ammon, he acts as if I were some sheltered maid who'd never ventured from her father's court. Automatically, she countered his move, wondering what other game he might be playing. It had been a long day indeed since anyone had troubled about her welfare. That this burly riverman should do so struck her as curious indeed. So curious that she never thought of believing it. Was he going to say what he meant? Your move, Captain, she murmured, but he only shoved forward another counter without speaking. For a time, the dogs progressed from square to square in silence, but Nikonk's ill humor wore off as they both became absorbed in the game. He played unimaginatively but well, and he knew the gambits thoroughly. Mara, having had little experience with any game in her slave's life, was forced to use all her wits to counter his moves and at the same time strike out for the other side of the board. In the end, it was by sheer audacity that she inveigled his three last dogs into a position where she could capture them all and jump her sole remaining one into the royal square. She sat back laughing as Nikonk's eyebrows soared. But by all that's sacred, he exploded. Now how did you trick me into that? Trick? I used no trick. Could you think so harsh of me? I could and I do. Aye, little one, you should have been a general. Nikonk chuckled as he swept the dogs into their drawer. Or perhaps I'm getting old. Not so, friend captain, said a dry voice behind them. That maid's a hard opponent. She plays to win. They swung around. Sheftu was lounging in the doorway, his arms folded comfortably. Aye, well, now, who doesn't? Muttered Nikonk. He busied himself putting away the game. Mara rose on the defensive herself, though she could not have told why. How long have you been standing there? She demanded. Long enough, said Sheftu, to make several interesting observations. Indeed, I suppose I've a few secrets left now. Oh, none at all. He grinned down at her. In spite of herself, she felt an overpowering curiosity, which she had no intention of admitting, as to just what those observations had been. Rushing past him, out the cabin door, She strolled across the deck to the port rail. The sun, dropping into Libya, had set river and sky aflame, but she was less aware of it than of the fact that he had followed and was leaning on the gunwale beside her. "Rod dies by fire tonight," she commented. "That's a lovely sky." "Aye, so it is." His tone finished that subject. She groped hastily for another. "I vow it's hard to believe another day is ending. Only 2 more and we'll dock at Abydos. Is it not amazing how? Aye, aye, it's amazing. Come, I'm convinced you're quite indifferent to my opinion. Now go ahead and ask me what I was talking about in there." She whirled to find his face alight with laughter. "The devil take you. Why do you plague me? What do you want of me?" "I haven't decided yet," he told her imperturbably. "Oh, haven't you? Haven't you indeed? By Set and all his demons, you're a cool one. I'll wager the captain was right. He said you were a rogue." There was a tiny silence. "Now, that's interesting," remarked Sheftu. He was still smiling, but all at once his eyes were dangerous. "And what else did the captain say?" "Ast, watch your tongue, my girl," thought Mara. "There's something there you don't know about." "What else?" prodded Sheftu. "Why, naught else." He waited. His smile had hardened into something so implacable that she felt a tremor of fear. Why should he probe so? Perhaps she'd better come out with the whole thing. The captain did not, but cautioned me about stray young men on riverboats. Aside from the fact that he fluttered like a hen with one chick, is there anything startling about that? He subjected her to that cold scrutiny a moment longer, then slowly relaxed, easing one elbow against the rail. "Nay, I'm not startled, only interested in the captain's opinion. So he said I was a rogue?" "He said you might be." "Aye, and so I might. Or something even worse." He seemed amused now, and Mara's self-confidence rushed back, along with her usual impudence. "Doubtless. You've secrets you don't tell, that's certain. Aye, so be it. Guard your tongue if you will. I'll find you out in time, in spite of it." "You're sure that's wise?" he answered lazily. "Does it matter? I'm sure I mean to try." She turned away, but he reached out suddenly and spun her back against him. "Are you quite sure my—" He broke off, his eyes traveling over her upturned face. He gave a short laugh and tightened his arms deliberately. "By all the gods, I'd rather kiss than threaten you. I wonder if it wouldn't be more effective." "Hi, conceited pig, you'll do neither. Let me go." She squirmed violently, but he only laughed and continued to hold her fast. Then his smile faded. "Look you, my pretty gutter snipe," he said, "you're too curious for your own good. Behave yourself and stay out of my affairs." Loosing her so suddenly that she half fell against the railing, he turned and strode off down the deck. After a moment of speechless outrage, Mara fled in the other direction. Gutter snipe! Why, that son of 7 crocodiles, that rogue, that scoundrel, she'd pay him out for this. She flung herself onto the stack of hides that served her as bed and glared into space. Had she lost her wits completely? How had he managed to tease her, frighten her, make love to her, and snub her all in the same 5 minutes? Always she had been able to snap her fingers under the nose of any man, yet this one— Aye, this one was different. She scowled, remembering unwillingly the strength of his arms about her. And why hadn't he kissed her, pray? Was she so repulsive, so ill-favored, so shrewish? The devil take him. An hour later she was still lying there, moodily watching the silver beetle's high black prow trace circles against the moon. Gutter snipe. All right, suppose she was. Tomorrow, by Amun, she would have revenge. She would treat him with a smiling indifference he wouldn't be able to break through, no matter how hard he tried. She would be gay, aye, charming, but oh, how remote. It was part of the wisdom as well as revenge. If she did not take care, he'd be surprising a real secret out of her. She patted the queen's little scarab thoughtfully. How cold his eyes had been as he questioned her about Nakonk, as if he could toss a girl to the crocodiles without thinking twice about it. For all she knew, he could, and who would be there to know or care if he chose to do just that? The captain had been right to warn her about Sheftu. He was a dangerous young man. Chapter 5 is called Dangerous Bargain. So I hope that you all join us tomorrow for Chapter 5 and the exciting continuation of the story. Dangerous Bargain. The first word is actually not a word, it's a name. Mara. Mara. The first word is Mara. So let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen in the next couple of chapters. I think Kimberly has a good idea. Save it for the synopsis. Yeah, I think Kimberly has a good idea of what might happen, but I want to know what you think might happen. Mom says total love triangle. Okay, so we've got the captain and Mara and Sheftu. Is that the love triangle? I'm not sure, because the captain's pretty old. He's like in his 40s. That's like ancient, right?
I think Mom means the guy who
Oh. Anyway, we'll have to see. Oh, the visiting princess. Okay, so we'll have to see what's going to happen tomorrow. I think actually after tomorrow we'll have a pretty good clue of. We'll have a pretty good clue after tomorrow what is going to happen in the rest of the book. So I hope that you're enjoying the story, and we will continue Mara tomorrow. And have a good night, and God bless you. And